Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was Acnologia the Dragon and made Harem with Beast Girls Part 1. Before we start, please go support Acnologia-apocalips for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Prologue: The Arrival. Narrated me. In the gap dimension where time and reality do not apply in that place, there is a black dragon with blue patterns, pearl eyes with a pair of wings that resemble an angel and a double stinger tail. Acnologia, the dragon god king of the apocalypse, after the humiliating defeat of his ex-wives. Yes, ex-wives, since to his misfortune he had slept with some semen dumps which disgusted him to the core, and to top it off, how many times had he kissed them? Who knows how many things those women had swallowed. But well, after having murdered Rias, it seems that his exes remained still, either because of the fear that he would kill them or because they would be conspiring against him, which did not matter to him, knowing in advance that no one can defeat him. He had already traveled through dimensions and he would not lie. The dimension that he liked was where there were ninjas. Thanks to that, he was able to be more perceptive and more stealthy and clear in the collection of information, and without mentioning the wars that were fought. It goes without saying that the taste of chakra was something strange but acceptable, and he learned very interesting techniques until a few centuries ago a red-haired clan appeared. At that moment his mind disconnected from his body, and so to speak a panic took over his mind, or maybe fear. Flashback. Ninja World Year, I don't know. I don't remember because I didn't put it. Acnologia Issei walks through the continent, not caring that humans died in his path. They were seeking their own death by trying to seal it, but he had different thoughts. Acnologia Issei, so a clan was born from the youngest son of that Otsutsuki brat. I thought he only had those tree lovers, thought Acnologia. According to the humans I asked about that clan, the only thing he got was that they were on an island surrounded by a whirlpool, and that they were masters in the Sila, and of course their name, and their most outstanding characteristics. Acnologia Issei, Uzumaki, distinguished by their red hair, Acnologia thought with a shiver running down his spine. Me Issei, those words froze his blood. He didn't want to believe that those women would pursue him even after death, right? 2 years later. Acnologia was flying in a specific direction, but in his gaze there was no longer the cold and emotionless pearl of always. Now there were blood-red eyes that shone brightly. The reason for this activity is that 3 days ago he met about 30 women and men divided. It would be 15 women and 15 men, a total of 30 people with red hair. When the Uzumaki saw him, they did not hesitate to act. Some were smart, and ran in a direction that was sure where Konoha was. Those who stayed were 3 men and 2 women. Man 1, the black dragon said seriously but sweating profusely. Woman 2, because of all the possible beasts we had to be with him, she said nervously, but Uzumakis can be stubborn and sometimes loose-mouthed. Man 2, what's wrong, underdeveloped lizard, you see us so much, he said mockingly. Woman 1, you're afraid that we'll seal you. I wouldn't be surprised, and besides, this way I'll make you my pet, you'll be mine, she said with a smile that Acnologia himself reminded her of a certain crimson hitch. Her paranoia reached levels that even Kronos and Zeus would envy. Before the last man could speak, a giant claw crushed him with such brutality that even the ground where they were standing gave way, creating a crater. The Yuzu shinobi reacted quickly and jumped away, but that didn't save them from Acnologia's growing anger, whose eyes were now bright red. That scared them, but they couldn't say anything when he jumped forward and had his jaws open. The Yuzu shinobi saw in slow motion how their end was approaching. Acnologia didn't bother to swallow them. Instead, he allowed fire into his jaws where he had his prey listening to the screams of agony from being burned alive. When he finished screaming, he opened his mouth and only ashes came out, and when he finished cleaning his tongue, he let out a thunderous roar to the sky that was heard in the elemental nations. Currently Acnologia saw the island from the sky. Its inhabitants saw it, and needless to say they began to attack and some to escape, but he would not let them. Gathering energy, he released a roar of power. Damn delicate Wattpad with its gifts, you used to tolerate more than that, what happened? Thus destroying the island completely and roaring ferociously. The news that the black dragon destroyed Yuzu was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now with Yuzu's secrets destroyed, they didn't know how to seal it. End of flashback. Narrates Issei. Just remembering that clan gives him chills, but in the end he destroyed that planet and killed that entire strange race of Otsutsuki. It's not that they were difficult, but the wretches came back somehow, so his solution was to destroy their bodies as souls or essences. At least he would sleep peacefully knowing that he had already removed a thorn in his side. Issei, Acnologia, well, it's time to go, he said, and Echo opened a portal to his next adventure. Note: the name of the anime is long, so I won't bother to put it, but for those who haven't seen the anime, here is the title. Yuusha Party with Suho Sareta Beast Tamer. Yuusha Beast Tamer World. A gap appeared in the sky and reality began to break. Narrates Issei. I had finally arrived, but when I saw the world I would be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed. There were only weak animals, a complete failure, I sighed in disappointment. Take off to find a cave to stay in, and the cave you find is very nice and welcoming. Because who wouldn't stay here with this view when leaving the cave? Issei Cave is behind the lake in the picture. Well, let's rest. I don't think the animals here are stupid enough to challenge him for territory. 1,000 years later. I narrate. Issei, after wandering around that world, saw how some animals evolved and some became corrupted, and he witnessed the birth of the gods and demons. When they felt and witnessed Issei, they immediately took him as a threat and tried to kill him, but as expected, those races hated each other, and it became difficult for them to work as a team. Issei, seeing that, they stopped attacking him, either because of the casualties he caused to their races or because of his war. In all that time, Issei only watched as all this developed, and needless to say, the dragons tried to overthrow him from his mandate as king. Narrates Issei. I'm fed up with them bothering me, I can't even sleep. I'll have to show them that no one messes with the dragon of the apocalypse, and lives to tell the tale. I left my cave and decided to bring an end to humans and all existing life. I narrate. Issei walked around the world destroying everything in his path. The dragons tried but failed, the gods made one last blow, but that only caused their allies to die. Narrates normally. On a wasteland you could see the figures of the gods, some of them dead and others seriously injured, on the ground. Issei, Acnologia. Listen to me well, you damn trash. If you bother me again or interfere in my way, I will extinguish you from the face of existence. He said angrily, and the gods said nothing, just clenching their fists in helplessness, and the dragons who tried to help were of no use. But the next words that came out of this beast, according to them, froze their blood. Acnologia. Because I am the dragon god king of the apocalypse, I am. Acnologia. Roaring, causing the planet to tremble a little at the thunderous roar. Etherion. Flame. Acnologia roared furiously, launching a shower of pure magic projectiles. The dragon-like gods who survived escaped by pure miracle. 2,000 years later. 2,000 years passed, and the story of the black dragon of the apocalypse, which had massacred almost all races, spread throughout the world. Humans tried to tame it only to be swallowed. The gods left a warning to humans that this dragon was the end, the embodiment of chaos, destruction, and death. The demons just stayed on the sidelines as they did not want to provoke the wrath of that monster, but the demon queen had a plan that guaranteed her victory against the black dragon. Along with her 4 generals, she created an artifact that would take away its power and make it hers. Narrates Issei. I was sleeping near a lake, but suddenly I feel a demonic presence. Acnologia. What do you want now, Lilith, queen of demons? He said with a deep voice but full of hate towards the queen. Lilith, easy black dragon, I want your power, she said maliciously, and suddenly she takes out a transparent orb, and from it comes a white ray that hit me squarely. But I feel something strange, I feel like someone wants something from me. It didn't take me half a second to understand that he was stealing my power. Acnologia, so you're stealing my power, huh? I won't allow it, he exclaimed, charging a roar and shooting at the orb that broke into 5 fragments. But what surprised me for the first time in my entire existence is that the 5 fragments of that orb took the form of objects that he knew very well. Well, almost all of them. One of them he didn't recognize. The first was a dragon glove that he always carried with him, no matter if there was no one inside it. For him that glove is his greatest treasure that he would never leave. It was the boosted gear. The second one was also a treasure. They were the wings of Albion. The third weapon was a strange type of spear that looked like it had been fused with a trident. The fourth weapon was a sword that he created with his blood that was infected with Samuel's blood. In itself that was an advantage because they would not create clones of him. The sword of the apocalypse. And finally a glove where he was previously sealed to have bearers and have fun creating this cycle of hatred. He had already had several bearers who were forgotten or betrayed, but that glove contained much of his power. Chaos Gird. If I had to rank them, they would be the following. The most powerful, his Chaos Gird 1. The second most powerful, his apocalyptic sword. The third weapon will be given a name since I have never seen that type of design. I call it Demo's, Dawn guided by blood. And of course the last and second to last were the Longuinus of his brothers. I narrate. The Demon Queen did not expect this at all, but when she saw how the fragments transformed into weapons, she did not hesitate for a second to take them. But the weapons repelled her and reacted negatively to her as some released rays that hit her. The black dragon laughed at their misfortune, but they both watched as the weapons shot into the sky and scattered across the world. Lilith, well, it wasn't what I expected, but you no longer have power. You won't be able to defend yourself, she said maliciously, creating powerful spells, but they didn't do anything to him. How is that possible if I took away your power? She said angrily. Acnologia, ha ha ha, and you think I'm going to tell you? I'm Acnologia dragon god, he said to tear off her arm, making her scream in pain. But Lilith, with the little concentration she could gather, created a magic circle to escape, but Acnologia, dark art, curse of agony, she said, so that after pointing her claw at her a dark ray came out that hit her, but she didn't see anything. But without wasting time she went to her kingdom, but when she arrived she was invaded by a very annoying pain throughout her body. She was not stupid, she knew that the bastard cursed her. 400 years later, Issei had to return to his human form. Since the sudden outburst of his power destabilized the little power he had left, and if he continued with his dragon form he would lose the little power he had left, and to recover the lost power it would take him millennia, and to not remain as a simple dragon he spits fire with terrifying force. Unfortunately for him, he had to pretend to be a beast tamer and search for information about his power fragments. He could feel them in the world and they were directly connected to him, but he didn't know where they were specifically. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. At that time the Demon Queen died. According to what she heard from some sealed demons, her queen could not bear the pain of the curse that she said the black dragon cursed her with, and for even greater reason they began to fear him if they met him. 300 years later Issei went to a village and learned that some gods bring heroes to defeat the Demon King, if they knew that the queen died and the one on the throne is just a simple general. But every hero died. Currently he joined the group of the hero of this time, and needless to say that they took him out of desire. Sometimes he would like to kill Aryans in 1001 ways. That supposed hero is only garbage in addition to the fact that he gives off malice, arrogance, and disgust. He only joined this group of losers to look for the boosted gear that was apparently in a cave guarded by powerful monsters that was under the control of the demon, since the queen before dying spoke to him about the fragments of the power of the black dragon, which the demons wanted to possess that power, but as the same thing happened with the queen, the weapons they found rejected them, or even killed them. In one of those missions we found the cave. Of course they didn't know what that glove was, for when Arios put it on nothing happened except that the glove burned him. I put it on, and in front of the looks of those idiots I put it away, and when they saw that it disappeared they thought that I broke it, and they blamed me for that, but I couldn't care less about what they say, but thanks to those idiots I recovered some of my power. Present. Arios, Issei, your goodbye, he said with a superior smile. The Aryan companions looked at him with contempt. Lena, you're just a useless tamer, she said, approaching Issei and looking at him mockingly. Mina didn't say anything, she just remained neutral towards him. Agth looked at him with contempt. Issei, it doesn't matter, I already have what I wanted, see you never garbage, he said with contempt, and leaving the room and leaving everyone with words in their mouths. But Arios was furious because he didn't think he would react as he expected. After that Issei joined the village guild. Issei went to a forest to pass a test. Issei, These goblins are shit, he said with disgust, killing the last one who split his head with a stomp. The other 4 goblins were dead, but their expressions conveyed fear, agony, and pain. Storing Ascalon in his sword sheath, he had apparently forgotten that he had his sword stored in his glove. Better for him. Suddenly he heard a scream. Out of curiosity he went to investigate, and when he arrived he saw a killer tiger. It is a D rank monster. He saw that what he was attacking was a feline spirit. Issei, what is a feline spirit doing so far from its village? He thought with intrigue. But without warning the girl jumped with a powerful kick and killed the tiger. Issei, what strength! Although it doesn't surprise me, feline spirits are characterized by their great physical power, he thought, not very surprised by the situation. But he saw how the girl fainted, and without many options he caught her. Issei, hey, wake up, what's wrong? He said so that the brat would wake up. Me, he said with tired words that were very low to hear. Issei, what did you say? He said with intrigue, since even with his improved senses as a dragon he couldn't understand anything. I'm dying of hunger, he said with the most silly face for him, or the most adorable face for others at that moment. Issei looked at her with a blank face. Moments later, Issei gave her food he had brought. Issei, I see you haven't eaten for days, he said seriously. Yes, I even think I saw my grandparents greeting me from the other side, he said with a cat face. Kanade, we haven't introduced ourselves. I'm Kanade. As you see, I'm a feline spirit. I'm delighted to meet you, she said with a smile. Issei, Zoldyck said simply. But he saw her approaching at a certain distance. Kanade, call me by my name, she said with a cat-like smile. Narrates Issei. After telling everything to the hero, Kanade was furious, but I calmed her down by telling her that it was not worth it, that the moment of her death would come. Kanade offered me to make a contract with her, and let's say that even though she reminded me of certain Nikomatas, she had to swallow her hatred. Issei, it's done. Kanade, it means we already have a relationship, she said happily. When I heard that, I made a look of intrigue. She saw me. Kanade, am I wrong? She said doubtfully. Issei, not at all, I said without much importance, but suddenly she grabbed my hand and pulled me towards him, walking where the town was. Issei, what a curious group we will form now, he whispered with a touch of grace. Chapter 1 Missions, Dragon and the Truth. Narrates normally. Issei after Kanade took him to the guild. Receptionist, congratulations, you are now an adventurer, and for completing the mission of collecting herbs, she said happily and giving him 500 copper coins. Kanade, Issei said happily. Issei, sorry for the wait, Kanade. Kanade, welcome, are you an adventurer now? She said curiously. Issei, yes, I already am, he said simply, although he still hasn't given up his objective: recover his power, and quickly. Because over the years his fragments of power had merged with some humans or other races, of course except for demons, since throughout history since he lost his power the fragments looked for bearers who were forgotten or betrayed. The fragments had followed the instinct of the chaos gird in him, but they also chose bearers worthy of their power. How did he know that? Because in the years he searched for his fragments, he felt how he disappeared and then felt them again, but being very weak, implying that they had already chosen a bearer. Kanade, really, what happiness, she said, very happy for her partner. Issei, well, I want to start doing errands, is that okay with you? He said, looking at Kanade and her body expressions to see if she accepts or not. Kanade, yeah, no problem, let's go, she said excitedly. Aventuro, hey, what do we have here? This is not seen every day, a feline spirit said, looking at Kanade from head to toe and with some lust. Issei stood in front of her and sent her a murderous glare that the adventurer had to endure. Issei, what do you want? He said seriously, since he doesn't like these types of humans. I ventured, I've never seen one in person, he said, moving a little closer. What's a feline spirit doing here? Kanade, I have nothing to say to you, bully, she said, turning her gaze. Aventuro, come on, don't be so cold, he said, looking at her breasts with lust. Do you want to drink something with me? You'll have a great time with this loser, he said arrogantly. Kanade, hey! Don't make fun of my master, He is very strong and he is the best tamer, he said confidently, and all the adventurers gathered to see the dispute. Adventurer, ha ha ha, if that's the case let's see who's stronger, he said, sitting at a table to put his arm out for a game of arm wrestling. The girl will be the prize, he said arrogantly. Issei remained serious throughout the conversation until he reached his limit of patience, and sat in front of his opponent, and future one-handed man, since he would have no mercy on him. Aventurero, don't cry when you lose, it's a feline spirit at stake, he said, already savoring the victory. Issei didn't say anything, he just prepared to break the forearm. Aventurero, ready now, I shout. Crack! It was the sickening sound of a broken arm, and to top it off, the forearm was in a position it shouldn't be. The adventurer screamed in pain, and the others picked him up to take him out. Kanade, the winner is Issei, she said happily, raising Issei's arm, who didn't even flinch at the screams of the unfortunate man. Layla, what's going on here? Hey, you again, she said with frustration and disappointment. Excuse me, they were about to take away your adventurer's badge. Issei, it doesn't matter, he said, not taking into account the importance of what he had done. Layla, by the way, Issei, how were you able to tame such a rare species, even in your exam? She said with a serious face and a dark aura surrounding her, scaring Kanade, causing her to hug Issei from behind. Issei just looked at her, unfazed by the look that woman was giving him. He was not afraid of anything. Kanade, sorry, she said with fear and continuing to hug Issei. Everything had already been said and the adventurers went to do their adventuring things. Kanade, don't you wonder how you did it? He said curiously, not to see the surprise of having so much strength. Issei, the truth is he didn't say it simply, he already knew how tamers became strong if they tamed a powerful species. Let's go on missions, Kanade. Some time later. Issei and Kanade went to cut grass, but Issei got lazy and sent some rabbits to do it. But suddenly they heard a commotion and went shopping and saw some bandits assaulting an old man. Issei knew those bandits were the Dark Fangs, but he could care less about those humans and much less about an old man. Kanade, Issei, let's help the old man please, she said, looking at Issei with pleading. Issei, okay, letting out a sigh of resignation, he went to attack the bandits with Kanade. Bandit leader, damn, he said to try to stab Issei, but his anger went into shock when he saw that his knife broke upon contact with his skin, but before he said or did anything, Issei gave him a karate chop to the neck, breaking it and killing him quickly. Everyone was scared when they saw that their leader was killed. Kanade didn't see anything because she went to see how the old man was doing. Issei continued to fight with the bandits, who fell one by one. Kanade, why am I so nervous? Thought Kanade. Issei has the power to change the concept of tamer. I have seen him do incredible things with the sword and much more. Although he has not ordered me to, I have to fight, she thought, watching as Issei knocked down a bandit with a knee to the stomach. Kanade, incredible, she said, seeing Issei standing in front of her. It seems that I didn't need to worry. The remaining bandits rushed at Issei. Kanade, I can't take my eyes off him while he fights, she thought to blush, and without her seeing it, Issei looked at her out of the corner of his eye to smile a little. What is this? My heart is beating 1,000 times. Pessin, while placing his hand where his heart is. Issei, they were just garbage. Kanade, everything is fine over there, he said while approaching Kanade, who still hadn't reacted. Until he realized what was around him. Kanade, yes. This gentleman is alive and kicking, she said, making the old man laugh nervously. Issei, you're blushing, he said as he approached Kanade, who was nervous. You liked watching me fight, he said as he wrapped his arm around her waist and the other one caressed her head. How adorable of you, Kanade, he said as he continued pampering Kanade, who was already steaming from his head. Narrates normally. The old man told them that there was a cave nearby where the rest of the bandits claimed it for the treasures they found. Issei and Kanade had already arrived and they were entering. Well, only Issei and the bees he had controlled, and he told Kanade to go get other adventurers. When the adventurers arrived with Kanade, all the bandits were already on the ground, paralyzed by the poison. Kanade, Issei brought help, she said while adventurers came behind her, since the noble of her town does not care about the crime there in his city. But everyone fell silent when 4 real lizards emerged from a part of the cave that had wooden bars. Kanade, Real lizards, why did they have a rank sea monster here? She said doubtfully, looking at the bandits. Bandit 2, we had them for you. Attack. He couldn't finish the sentence because one blow killed the guy. The others were surprised and ran to the exit, leaving only Issei and Kanade. To end this quickly, Issei decided to test his control as king, releasing a dark and evil aura. Issei, stop! He said in a deep voice, and the evil aura surrounded him. When the lizards felt him, they knelt before him in fear. Kanade was surprised that the lizards obeyed Issei, and of course she could feel Issei's aura, but she wouldn't lie if she said that it scared her a little, and she could swear that instead of Issei there was a black dragon with blue patterns and red eyes. Issei simply approaches and without a shred of mercy cuts off their heads. Some time later, Issei, after finishing off the lizards, went to the guild to report what happened, and thanks to defeating the Dark Fangs they raised his rank to E, although when he said about the lizards they raised it to C. Of course Issei didn't care about that since he did whatever he wanted, but he was only here for information. Thanks to everyone, he was rewarded with a lot of money, and of course Kanade made him celebrate by eating luxurious dinners with her, and of course she had to buy some equipment, although for Issei he didn't need armor. The only thing that could pierce his skin is a dragon slayer sword, something that there are only 2 dragon killing swords. His apocalyptic sword and Ascalon. At this moment they were in an inn. Kanade, ah, what a joy after so much camping, she said as they threw themselves into bed. What's wrong? She said doubtfully. Kanade, Issei, these beds are soft, she said, waving her hand indicating for him to come. The lady who works here came out from behind the door. Lady, I'm glad you like it, she said to cover her mischievous laughter with her hand in a somewhat elegant way. Come on, couple, she said, as she quickly left. Issei looked at her with doubt, and could only think of one thing. Issei, women who understands them, he thought with irony. We see how Kanda reacts to this, he thought with a plan in motion. Kanade, come on Issei, come to bed, she said, moving her hand in a cat-like manner. Issei, I'll sleep outside, he said to leave the room, but Kanade holds him back. Kanade, why? She said excitedly, but still holding Issei back. Issei, a boy can't sleep with a girl in the same room, he said simply. Kanade, I don't care if you sleep with me, she said firmly in her words. Issei, well, I'll sleep with you, he said so that Kanade would be happy, and then blushed. The reason Issei was taking off his shirt, leaving his chest uncovered. Kanade, why are you taking off your clothes? She said, blushing up to her ears while covering herself with her hands so as not to see Issei. But if you got closer you could see that she had her fingers open so she could see Issei's body, which had several scars, but his body was marked. Kanade couldn't help but lower her hands and stare at Issei's body. Issei, the reason is that I don't like sleeping with clothes on, he said simply, but having a little fun with Kanade's look. Issei, there is something you like, he said with a smile that made Kanade react. Kanade, e.a.hey.abu so. Sorry, she said, stuttering and turning her gaze. Issei, calm down, you can look all you want, he said as he approached and whispered in her ear, which made Kanade shudder. You can change if you want, I give you my word that I won't see you, he said as he lay down on the other bed so that after a few seconds she would fall asleep. Kanade, how fast he sleeps, she said, and then calmed her blush and changed her clothes to put on pajamas to sleep, and hoping that Issei wouldn't see her. Kanade, Issei looks cute when he sleeps, she said while seeing Issei sleeping in the other bed. Although he told me that the group of heroes voted for him, I saw in his eyes that that was not all, there was something deeper. Although he smiles at me, I know that smile is not his true smile. I want him to smile again. I want to see his true smile, Kanade thought before falling into the world of dreams. Some time later, Issei and Kanade did easy errands and enjoyed the adventure life, but Issei didn't enjoy it since he was only waiting for Kanade to enjoy herself, and he in turn was looking for some information until a mission made him curious. Layla. It is rumored that there is a vandal who fights with those who try to cross the bridge. Apparently he retreats when he wins the fight, said Layla, so he hasn't killed anyone yet, but they are afraid to cross. Issei, I accept the job, said Issei because he was curious about this. Guard dog. Moments later, Issei and Kanade arrived at the bridge and found nothing. Kanade, I'm sure the supposed guard dog is here, she said curiously and inspected the area. Issei, I should, But the witnesses didn't want to talk and I wasn't going to waste time with garbage, he said as if he didn't care about the lives of those humans until he caught a very familiar scent for him. Issei, Kanade, look up, he said so that Kanade would stand next to him and look up, surprised to see what it was. Issei/Kanade, dragon, they said at the same time. It was a red dragon. The dragon, setting his sights on those below, was surrounded by a tornado and descended onto the bridge. When the smoke cleared, the dragon was no longer there, but instead there was a girl. I feel a great power coming from you, said the girl, pointing at Issei. Fight with me, she said defiantly. Kanade, the dragon is a girl, she said, tilting her head to look at Issei and being surprised that he wouldn't stop looking at her, which made her jealous by showing it to him with a pout. Issei didn't say anything as he stared at the dragon and had to grudgingly admit that this girl was beautiful, and to top it off she was a redhead. Okay, he had two options: one, that he had a problem with redheads, or two, that whenever he had to do something he had to meet a redhead, although option one would make more sense. Hey, are they listening to me? She said, somewhat angry because they were ignoring her. Issei, and you are supposed to be the guard dog, he said with doubt, but not very surprised by this because as soon as they entered the bridge he felt the girl's magical power. Watchdog, I don't like that nickname, she said, somewhat offended by that. Tanya, my name is Tanya, from the great species of dragons, and I am trained, said the already known Tanya. Issei, I see, I suppose you are already 15 years old. As I remember, the dragons that are already that age will have to fend for themselves, he said, looking at Tanya. Tanya, I see that you have information about my species, and if not I will leave until you fight me, an adventurer and a feline spirit. You can fight the two of you if you want, she said confidently, something that bothered Issei a little. Issei, I will fight you, said Issei while getting into a fighting stance. Kanade, are you sure Issei is a dragon, she said, worried about Issei. Issei, calm down, I know what I'm doing, he said seriously. Tanya, fine, as you wish, but you'll regret it, she said, quickly leaving Asia with Issei and giving him a karate punch that was going towards his face, but Issei blocked it with his forearm. Congratulations, that punch had finished off my rivals. Issei, what strength, I wouldn't be surprised if she looked for someone powerful to train, he said seriously, but suddenly he had to stabilize himself since the girl increased her strength. Tanya, congratulations, you passed the first test. But what do you think of this? She said so that he would breathe, a little fire coming out that Issei noticed. Issei, Kanade dodges, he said so that suddenly a torrent of fire comes out and shoots towards them. Tanya saw how her flame hit Issei squarely, which made her smile, but her smile faded when she saw that it didn't do anything to him. Kanade also saw how the flames swallowed Issei and a fear appeared in her, but then she sighed in relief when she saw that Issei came out unharmed. Issei, that was all, he said simply, but suddenly he heard a scream. Kanade, Naya, my tail is burning, she screamed while running from one side to the other. Issei, stay still, he said to create a ball of water and put out Kanade's tail that was emitting some smoke. Calm down, I'll heal you, he said so that a dark matter surrounded the tip of Kanade's tail, and then faded away, revealing that she no longer had the burn. Tanya, impressive, thought the dragon. Issei, my turn, I hope I'm not rusty, he said to the confusion of the two women who saw that Issei opened his mouth and from it air was entering that swirled in his mouth that began to shine, something that the girls noticed, and Tanya began to sweat as her instinct screamed at her to get away or dodge it. Issei, roar of the dragon of the apocalypse, said so that a torrent of energy came out shooting at Asia. Tanya, who dodged it by the skin of her teeth, but suddenly an explosion was heard that shook the bridge a little and a strong breeze was produced because of the explosion. When the girls saw the mountain that is near there, they saw that the mountain was missing a part of it. Issei, wow, this is rusty, he said simply. Tanya, and it's supposed to be rusty. I can't imagine if it were in all its splendor. And what is this dragon of the apocalypse? I think my grandparents told me about that dragon, but I don't remember, she thought. Issei, well, let's see how you do in hand-to-hand combat, he said to take out the Ascalon's sword, which when Tanya saw it, she hissed with annoyance and trembled with fear without her knowing it. Tanya, why does my body react like this to that sword? My instincts are screaming for me to get away from that sword, she thought with some fear. Issei, if you're wondering why it's shaking, it's because this sword is not just any sword, this is a Dragon Slayer sword, he said seriously. Kanade, take care of my sword, he said to give the sword to Kanade. Kanade, yes, she said, still surprised by Issei's power. Tanya, Dragon Slayer, she said with discomfort and sweating for that sword. Issei, let's see how you do with this, he said to summon the boosted gear. Tanya was surprised because she knew about that artifact since her father told her that a human fought him thanks to that glove, but that the wearer died from the overload of power. Issei, Balance Breaker, said so that his brother's armor would appear after so many millennia without using it. Tanya stood on guard. Issei shot out towards Tanya to exchange blows, but he saw that Issei had the advantage until Tanya became serious, and with terrifying strength she grabbed Issei by the hand and threw him into the sky. Issei in the air took out the wings of the armor to see that Tanya was already charging a lot of power. Issei, boost times 10, said Issei so that his glove would charge with his power and then launch himself along with Tanya's shot. Consequently, the two attacks were neutralized, creating an explosion. Tanya countered my best breath attack with one of her own, she thought, very surprised by the guy who was giving her a fight. Issei quickly approaches to hit her but stops an inch from her face. Issei, you lost, he said, hitting him with a finger on the forehead as the armor faded away. Tanya just pouted at losing but didn't say anything because before he hit her with his hand she had already charged a magic attack in the other hand, so she didn't back away because if she did she would take the attack full force. Tanya, well, you beat me, now what are you going to do? You'll sell me to a human, she said nervously, but what she received was a snort from Issei. Issei, of course not, because I would sell someone of my kind, he said boredly. Kanade, well done, Issei said as he hugged him without caring who was looking at him. Tanya just looked at them with doubt. After talking with Tanya and clearing up the misunderstanding with the Union, everything was resolved. Moments later, we found ourselves in a meadow where Issei and Kanade were talking with Tanya. Tanya, I would be interested in joining your group, said Tanya with firmness in her words. Issei and Kanade did not expect that response from the girl. Issei, why would you want to join my group? He said with doubt, since it seemed strange to him that she joined since she was looking for strong rivals, because he didn't believe that she would join just to be with him and train her. Tanya, so I can train and improve in battles, plus it will be fun, she said calmly. Besides, Issei, right? You're handsome and I feel like I like you, she said while hugging Issei from behind, pressing her body against his. Kanade! Nya, hey, get away from my handsome master, she said with jealousy. Issei, calm down, Kanade, it will be interesting, he said so that Kanade would calm down. Also, I'm sure you're wondering how I did that, he said so that both of them would nod. Tanya, yes, I want to know, but first sign a contract with me, she said. So that Issei can make the pact. Issei, ready, he said so she could see how Tanya would react. I need to train a little, besides, now my power is under control, I can now access my dragon form again, soon we will meet again, damn demons and you too, gods, he thought, but before he continued with his apocalyptic monologue, Tanya had pinched his cheek. Tanya, hey, you made a contract with a dragon. Stop putting on a long face, she said as she introduced herself. It will be a pleasure to help, dear master, she said, smiling. Moments later, they had already arrived at the inn they rented for 1 week. When they entered the room, Issei began to take off his clothes, causing Kanade and Tanya to blush. Tanya, why are you taking off your clothes? She said, thinking unholy thoughts. Kanade didn't say anything since she knew why he took it off, but she still wasn't used to seeing Issei's delicious body, and when she noticed Issei's gaze on her she quickly shook her head to remove those thoughts. Issei, because I don't like sleeping with clothes on, I've been in my dragon form for so long that it's literally naked that I feel somewhat strange when I go to sleep with clothes on, he said simply so that after Issei's back Acnologia's wings and tail came out too. Kanade/Tanya, you are a dragon, they said in unison, very surprised. Issei, yes I am, but not just any dragon, but I am the most powerful existence in the world that even the gods fear me, said Issei as he lay down on the bed. Issei told them that he was thousands of years old, and how his power was stolen, and that he was looking for them. After a while Issei put away his wings and tail to fall asleep. Kanade and Tanya stared at each other, as if lightning was coming out of them. Kanade, I want to see Issei's face while he sleeps, she said, not wanting to give up her side of the bed. Tanya, I don't care, I just want the bed, she said, but I don't want to give in on the bed either. Kanade, what, she didn't say in a cat-like way. Tanya, selfish, she said in a comical way. Issei, you know I hear you right? Issei said, opening his eyes, alerting and scaring the girls a little, who asked for forgiveness. It doesn't matter, so that there are no problems. How about we put the beds together and sleep together? He said, so that they would accept, somewhat blushing. Issei, good night, he said to kiss Kanade's forehead, who smiled to close her eyes. Tanya pouted only to open her eyes in surprise when she felt someone kiss her on the forehead. Tanya blushed but also smiled so she could sleep. Elsewhere, the heroes group came from the forest looking for a magic artifact to defeat the Demon King. Arians, hell, he said in frustration. Lena, I'm tired, she said, from the exhaustion of magic. Mina, same, but what are we going to do with the forest and its creatures? She said doubtfully. Arios, it's not obvious. We'll ask Issei to come back and we'll pretend that what we said was a joke, and when we're in the forest we'll get rid of him, he said with a malicious smile. Without knowing it, the hero was digging his own grave, and if that were not enough, a small figure was on the roof of the house where he heard everything and saw everything. The strange thing about this being is that it was a dragon made of darkness, but in its eyes stood out some tomos that turned slowly. Chapter 2, Orc Fight and Unwanted Reunion 1. Narrates normally. After Issei made the pact with Tanya, they spent their time doing easy missions. Today Issei was tasked with eliminating the slimes since they were eating the farmer's crops. Tanya, nothing here, she said while eliminating a slime with a small flame while Tanya searched around. Kanade, slime? She said in disgust as she covered her body. Tanya, what's wrong, Kanade? Are you scared of them? She said doubtfully. Kanade, not at all. She beat them easily. But I hate their texture and that they leave me all sticky when I fight them, she said while a mental image of a mini Kanade hitting a slime and exploding in her face and leaving slime on her body. Tanya, the result is the same, the fight, she said simply. I will reduce them to ashes with my fireballs and my fiery breath, so stay calm, she said, superiority. Kanade, really? I'm counting on you, Tanya, she said, asking and trusting Tanya's word. Tanya, I like that. You flatter me, she said as her pride rose. Although I would also like Issei to flatter me, she said as she looked surreptitiously at Issei. Kanade, Tanya, you are amazing. Tanya, you are the best. Kanade happily complimented Tanya while they both laughed. Issei, who watched them, wondered how it happened that he ended up again in the same cycle. Girls fall in love with him. He doesn't pay attention to those emotions and just protects them, and then falls in love, and then they betray him. He had already seen that in parallel, or alternate dimensions, and in his opinion it was already very cliché and very predictable. Issei, but yes. I'm not going to deny it, but her smile is beautiful, he said while watching them laugh. Issei, let's see, he said as he and the girls looked around. Kanade, no trace of slime. Issei, I thought we would find some swarm. What remedy will we look for from above, he said while the girls looked at him with doubt. Kanade, that bird will look for you instead, she said as she looked at the bird sitting on a rock. Issei, no. I'm going to use a technique that I haven't used for centuries, he said seriously. Kanade/Tanya technique? They said doubtfully. Issei didn't say anything. He just raised his hand to his chest, and from it came out a dark mass, and from it came some tentacles that went to Issei's chest, from which they took out a purple ball with black touches. It was Issei's soul. It was full of negative feelings. The soul traveled to the bird, and Issei's body fell on Tanya's chest. Tanya, hey! Tanya said, somewhat worried about Issei. Kanade, Issei? You look like a puppet without strings, said Kanade, excited and worried. Tanya, what's wrong? Tanya asked, but a serious voice interrupted them. Issei, bird girls, I'm here, he said while waving his wing. They both got scared by that. Kanade, you turned into a bird, she said excitedly. Issei, no. I just transferred my soul to the birds, he said, but suddenly Issei's body stood up, which scared the girls, especially when they saw that he was defending himself while analyzing the surroundings. But the most notable thing that the girls noticed was that in the eyes of Issei's body there was no reflection of life, and there was only a feeling of hatred. "Kanade, what's happening to your body?" He said something scary. "Tanya, does it move by itself?" she asked. "Issei, bird, don't worry. I've trained my body to move by instinct if the occasion arises where I'm controlled or separated from my body. You better not make any sudden movements. I'm going to look for the slime plague," he said as he flew away. When Issei left, the body continued looking around until it fixed its sight on the two women. "Kanade, he's watching us, what are you doing?" she said nervously as her handsome master's body was getting closer. "Tanya, and you're asking me," she said nervously because Issei's body was already in front of her. "Remember what Issei said, without sudden movements." Tanya and Kanade had remained still and saw that Issei's body took out the wings and dragon tail. They did not know if it was good or bad. "Tanya, oh. Hey, what's he doing?" she said nervously since Issei's body was behind her, but the body had hugged her and began to give her light kisses on Tanya's neck, which made her moan with pleasure. Kanade watched this in shock and felt a little jealous. Tanya had to bite a finger to contain her moans as a hand had been placed on her chest, and that hand was Issei's body, who kept kissing her neck until he bit her. Tanya couldn't take it anymore and let out a moan of pleasure. A little blood came out of Tanya's neck and a dragon mark appeared on her neck. Kanade was now nervous, but she wouldn't lie, she was also anxious. Issei's body began to give her kisses on the neck and cheek, but a hand rested on Kanade's chest, squeezing it a little, making Kanade moan with pleasure, who at this moment was like a tomato. Issei's body looked at her face and planted a chaste kiss on her lips while their tongues intertwined. After separating due to lack of oxygen, Kanade's eyes were already in a spiral, and to finish he also bit her neck, appearing the same mark. A while later Issei had returned, but when he got to where the girls and his body were, he saw that they were as he had left them, but the strange thing was that the girls were blushing and had a somewhat silly smile. Issei had abandoned the bird's body and took his own, standing up immediately, and the girls react. "Issei, because my voice tastes like blood," he said, looking seriously at the girls, who immediately blushed, remembering what Issei's body did to them. Issei, seeing that they did not respond, had to look at his memory, since when his soul separates from his body it automatically records in his memory what had happened. When Issei finished seeing what his body did to them, he let out a heavy sigh of resignation. "Issei, now every time they separate me or I separate from my body, it will automatically not attack them but defend them," he said, so that both of them nodded foolishly. A while later, Issei had already led the girls to the slime ring. "Tanya, Issei, can you use magic?" she asked with intrigue. "Issei, of course I know how to do magic. I am the dragon of the apocalypse," he said seriously. Issei pointed at the slimes with a finger, and a small black sphere with green edges was formed from it. "I always liked the character of Ulquiorra. I would have liked him to stay with Oriheim. Long live Ulquiorra x Oriheim." The girls tensed a little from the magical pressure emanating from that sphere. "Issei, Dark Zero," said Issei, so that a powerful black ray came out of it that wiped out all the slimes and destroyed part of the forest. "Kanade, what power," she said, impressed. Tanya could only nod her head in agreement. "Tanya, you destroyed half the forest. They will have to update the maps," said Tanya, "because of the destruction caused by that technique." "Issei, that won't happen. Wood style, jutsu of a forest world," he said, to make a hand position, and then from one moment to the next trees were born in the destroyed area. "Tanya, can you control nature?" she said with doubt and surprise. "Kanade, wow, Issei, you are amazing," she said, and then hugged him. Moment later, once they were in the guild, they began to eat as if there was no tomorrow. Tanya/Kanade, thank you very much, they appreciated the food. Tanya, then Issei, because you are a tamer, and yes, you are a dragon, more specifically the strongest of all, she said curiously. Kanade, that's it, Kanade said curiously. Issei, it's okay, I learned to tame beasts about 400 years ago, and the reason I do it is that I'm looking for my power, he said for the girls to listen carefully. Kanade, wait, so everything you showed wasn't your maximum power? He said, doubt. Tanya, so when we fought you held back, she said. Maybe the reason for that seriousness is that dragons are proud, and for someone to hold back in a fight is a blow to their dragon pride. Issei, don't get me wrong, Tanya, maybe I just held back a little, but the reason is that my power was stolen, he said, so that the girls would be surprised. Tanya, but who would be so powerful to steal your power? You being the black dragon of the apocalypse. According to my grandparents, they told me that your power is extremely powerful and corrosive, she said seriously. Kanade, I was told that his power was so dark and evil that if he took it even a little, it would corrupt him, she said seriously. Issei, you know that the one who commands the demons is that supposed demon king, but what you don't know is that he is not the demon king, he is the general of the demon queen Lilith, he said seriously and with a contained rage in his eyes. Tanya, the heroes who have faced the Demon King and who were also summoned only faced one general all this time, she said, shocked just like Kanade. Issei, yes, Lilith and her generals built an artifact that steals the enemy's power and transfers it to its user. But what Lilith didn't tell me is that I had fired a roar at the artifact that caused it to be destroyed, but the power that artifact had contained was divided into 5 parts and took shape, said Issei, to make a hologram of the fragments of his power. Kanade, what are those Issei artifacts? Kanade asked doubtfully. Tanya, I recognize one of them, but the rest didn't, say Tanya. Issei, what you see are my fragments of power that took the form of artifacts, each one has more of my power. But no one knows which one is the most powerful, but I know which ones are more powerful. The first one is 1. Chaos Gird. Issei, the second is my apocalyptic sword that was made from my scales and blood, he said seriously. The third is the Desmos spear, he said, so that a hologram of the spear appears. Issei, the last and second to last are equally powerful, and I think you already know it, Tanya. It is the boosted gear, and the other are the wings of the divine dividing, he said, so that a pair of blue wings appear. Kanade, so all this time you were searching for your power? She asked. Issei, yes, I joined the heroes group to look for my fragments, but I only found the boosted gird from there, he said seriously. Issei, but what Aryans really wanted was to use me for my taming skills, he said seriously. But suddenly Issei felt someone grab his hand, and he sees that it is Kanade. Kanade, I see in your eyes that you suffered, you don't want anyone to suffer the same pain you went through, she said happily, raising Issei's hand and bringing it to her chest. Issei didn't show it, but he was a little surprised by Kanade's action, but his other hand grabbed Tanya. Tanya, you are too humble and too serious, she said, turning her gaze. Tanya and Kanade look at each other and nod. They approach Issei, who by pure instinct his hand transforms into a dragon claw, but he did nothing. The girls had kissed Issei on the cheeks. Tanya/Kanade, we love you and we will never abandon you, they said at the same time. Issei, I've heard those words many times. You'll have to prove it to me, Issei thought. Tanya, besides, who does that hero think he is to say he is useless? You are the most powerful existence, she said angrily at the heroes group. Kanade, you're right. They must be having a bad time without Issei, she said, just as angry as her dragon friend. Some time later, Issei and the girls went to hunt orcs, but since the girls are competitive, they began to massacre the orcs that were there. Issei, don't trust these guys, they are weak, they are a bit smart, the bastards said seriously. Tanya, calm down, there's only one left, she said, going for the last straggler. But he was pretending to be dead to grab Tanya's leg, which made her fall, but she managed to kill him with a flame. Tanya sighed in relief until Kanade shouted at her that she had one behind her and was going to stab her, but suddenly she heard something break. Issei, you were going to do garbage, Issei said seriously, who had put his arm to protect Tanya, but as expected, Issei's body could only be damaged by a dragon-slaying sword. The orc had been scared by that, but Issei had grabbed him by the neck. The orc in his desperation tried to get away from the hold, but he couldn't, and with fear he looked as Issei was surrounded by a purple aura. Issei, disappear from existence, Hakai exclaimed Issei for the orc to begin to appear in purple particles that were dissolving in the air. Tanya, are you okay? she said worriedly, looking at the place where she had stabbed him. Issei, I already told you that the only way to harm me is the Dragon Slayer sword, and there are only 2 in the entire world. Come on, don't make that face, he said, giving her a kiss on the lips which made her blush, but she still reciprocated her lover's kiss. Kanade, I want some too, she exclaimed with a pout. Issei, not too slow, also kissed Kanade, and she responded with a blush. Some time later, he was already at the inn sleeping in the beds he had put together so that they wouldn't fight over the place. Tanya watched as Issei slept with her, but on her left side was Kanade hugging Issei's arm as if it were a pillow. Tanya, he worries about me and my well-being. I think after all he is my partner, thought Tanya happily. Kanade, how suspicious, said Kanade sleepily, exalting Tanya. The next day, Issei and the girls were walking through a field and Kanade was singing about a job well done. Tanya, the last few jobs were easy. Don't you think you need new equipment? She exclaimed and asked the last thing. Issei, I don't need it. Remember that I'm also a dragon, he said, but suddenly he feels some presences that made him frown. Kanade, Issei? She said with doubt to turn her gaze where Issei was looking. Tanya became serious. Arians, hello, the hero greeted. Issei just looks at him with a frown, seeing the entire hero group. Arios, how long? Issei said, looking at Issei seriously, but deep down he looks at him with superiority, hatred, and arrogance. Without realizing it, Issei had released all his power, causing the sky to darken, life around it to die, and throughout the planet an evil presence was felt that permeated the air around it with pure negativity, causing discord throughout the planet. But as quickly as he released his power, he suppressed it, not wanting to attract the attention of the gods and demons. The only one who noticed the aura of power was Mina, who was scared because behind Issei a representation of Issei in dragon form roared at her. The girls also noticed it, and only managed to grab his hand to calm him down. But without Issei realizing it, 2 people had felt Issei's power. In another part of the world, a woman of exorbitant beauty with breasts that would make many angels fall. She was in a church in a small town, and next to her was her friend, equally beautiful. 1. Did you feel the same as me? He said, seeing his sister fall. 2. Yes, I felt it too. I didn't expect him to be back, she said seriously. In fact, it's been 700 years since I felt his presence, she said, remembering the last time she felt that power. 1. Do you think we should go visit him? She said, smiling, which made her friend look at her as if she were crazy. 2. In case you forgot, the last time we visited him he almost ripped your head off. You're lucky that I more or less got along well with him at that moment, she said seriously, looking at her friend who sighed with resignation and sadness. 2. Do you still miss him? Gabriel said, looking at the now identified Gabriel. You know that now the faction of the gods has him on their blacklist, and you belong to that faction. Gabriel, faction of the gods. Gabriel, I'm not going to lie to you, maybe I missed him a little, but you helped me get over him, he said, looking at his friend. Penemu, demon faction. Penemu, yes. I helped you so you don't die like that Gremory girl. You already saw the consequences of continuing to love someone you betrayed, and you don't want to accept that he is with someone else, he said seriously. Gabriel, how did you do it? He said, looking at his friend. Penemu, it was difficult, and accepting it was much worse. I betrayed a wonderful man who did not love me out of lust. That will be my sin until the end of my time, she said sadly. Gabriel, there are already 2 of us. But we will visit him in due time. Someone must have made him angry if he had to release all his power. He said it would be at the time they were Issei's wives. He knew some things about him. Penemu, yes, too. My queen, the fool wanted to be too clever by trying to steal Issei's power. But I didn't know how to give away his power because a long time ago I came across this, she said, to summon a spear known to some as the Desmos spear. Penemu/Gabriel, we will see each other again, dear Issei, he said with a sigh of irony, knowing that he wouldn't even look at them in paint. Returning with Issei. Issei for some reason felt more irritated than usual, as if something or someone was about to come. Issei, what will that annoyance be? I'll have to take care of that after. Now I have another annoyance in front of me, Issei thought, irritated by the whole situation. Chapter 3: Dragon vs. Hero. At the moment, Issei looked irritatedly at the group of trash who called themselves heroes. Issei, what do you want, trash? He said coldly. Rias, hey, don't be so cold. After all, we were partners before, he said with false joy, since that nobody said rubbish to him, and that wouldn't stay like that. We're sorry about what happened. Even if you're useless, we could have said it in another way. Issei only sharpened his gaze, clenching his jaw in contained anger. Tanya, hey, you said they were partners. Are they the heroes group? Tanya said. Rias, don't get involved. A feline spirit and a dragon? What are two great species doing with him? Rias said, shocked, just like his group. Kamade, what do you think? We are Issei's partners and also his companions, said Kanade, repeating the word partner. Rias, impossible. I understand now that good for nothing is your servant, right? Rias said, trying in vain to reach a conclusion. Kanade, don't you dare say that! She exclaimed angrily. Issei is our master. Tanya just looked at them seriously without saying anything, analyzing the heroes group. Agth, impossible. Lena, is that insect training large species? She said, annoyed by the revelation. Issei, you came to ask me something, right? He said seriously, knowing beforehand that human scum would not hurt his ego if it were not important. Rias, that's right. We have an offer you can't refuse, he said, already beginning to outline his plan. Do you know the Lost Forest? Rias asked. Issei, of course, my last job was to explore it in order to cross it, he said seriously. Although I had lived there, that was 1,000 years ago. After my power was stolen, the Fairies took over the territory. Issei thought the last thing, ready to claim it again. Arians, I'm afraid it's costing us more than we expected. As time goes by, the forest's paths change and our destination moves away, in the end turning out to be a labyrinth. We had to retreat after a week, Arians wrote. Rias, that's why Issei, we would like you to help us complete it, he said, waiting for the answer. Issei just stayed out of all that since he didn't really care what Arians said. Arians, as you know, the beasts you tame can explore the forest and carry objects with ease, he said with his smug smile. Issei, do you really think I'm going to accept? He said sarcastically. Rias, you should feel proud to help the group of heroes, he said with superiority. Isn't that true? He asked his group. Agth, although it is not useful for combat, it serves other purposes, said the bald one. Mina, yes. Even God knows that, he said, a believer in his God. Issei just looked at her as if she was stupid, praying to a god that they had surely killed in the past, but there were so many that he didn't care if they were good or bad. Lena, you should be grateful that we gave you another chance, loser, said the magician. Rias, you heard them, Issei, you will help us, right? He said, already waiting for acceptance. Issei, I'm not interested, find someone else. Let's go, girls, he said to continue on his way. Tanya, it is not right to make a woman wait, said Tanya, happy with the result. Kanade, I don't care, said Kanade. Mina, wait a minute, Issei. What we're doing is essential to saving the world, she said, trying to convince him. Issei didn't look at her, he just paid a little attention to see what they were going to tell him now. Mina, in the forest there is a relic necessary to finish off the Demon King and prevent the awakening of the dragon that will bring the end and calamity, the black dragon of the apocalypse, the shield of truth, she said seriously. The girls, upon hearing Issei's name, looked at him persuasively with concern. Issei just got serious since that shield was made with one of his scales, but the only thing that could hurt him was a dragon slayer sword, unless. Of course, dragon slayer magic. How could he overlook that? I guess when you are the ultimate existence you gain confidence that no one can hurt you. Issei, what do I care about the world? He said, looking at him seriously with his pupils slit for a second. Everyone was surprised, even the girls who weren't expecting that answer. The heroes group was walking towards Issei, ready to take him away by force. Arians, you will come with us whether you want to or not, otherwise you will be considered a coward who abandoned the heroes group to save himself. Kanade, Kito's there, said Kanade. Would be. Tanya, wait a minute, said Tanya, it would be. Kanade, I would like to object, but if Issei doesn't want to, you will have to apologize, he said with a sharp look at Arios, who sweated from Kanade's death gaze. Arios, how strange, I think I already apologized, right? Arios said arrogantly, not willing to do that. Kanade, that's not a real apology, she said angrily. Tanya, the only thing that is certain is that they kicked him out of the group and now they want him to do them a favor. I think they should ask him in a better way. In short, ask him on your knees, she said the last part in a deep voice. Arios and his group were surprised by this request, unwilling to do so. Tanya, if you prefer the hard way, I'll be happy to use my breath, she said to release a small flame. Aryans, why are we on our knees? Do you really expect us to? He said, putting a hand on his face to hide the anger he was repressing, failing in the attempt. Don't bother! He exclaimed, no longer able to bear the accumulated anger. Aryans, me, the hero, Aryans? To kneel before that useless man? I refuse to do such a stupid thing, he exclaimed angrily. Agth, you're right. We haven't done anything wrong, the bald man said imposingly. Lena, I, the great Lena, will never do that, she said annoyed. Mina, it's an unpleasant proportion, she said offended. Arios, hey Issei. What a piece of shit you are. Let's see if you train your pets better, she said annoyed, approaching Issei and grabbing him by his shirt. Issei, pets? He said seriously. He was not stupid, he knew perfectly well what Aryans meant, and he did not like at all what he said to his companions. Aryans, yes, pets. Spending so much time with animals has made you mentally ill. Even though they are large species, they are not human. What is wrong with referring to them as pets? I questioned, annoyed. Admit it. You have them as pets, not as companions, he said, calmer now and starting to laugh. The Aryan team just smiled mockingly except for Mina, who stood on the sidelines. Aries, I get it now. Animals excite you. Now I understand why you are tame. He couldn't finish his sentence, and the reason. Issei, already very irritated, hit him in the stomach with such force that he sent him skidding towards the ground after ending up destroying a tree that was near them. The group of Aryans was surprised by that action. Arios, damn you Issei, did you hit me? A bucking Tamer hit the hero? He exclaimed furiously, trying to regain some of the air he lost. Issei, and I would do it as many times as I want. Kanade and Tanya are my partners and I love them, he said seriously. It sounds very cloying when I say it, he thought the last thing. Issei, whoever messes with them will have to deal with me, he said while his eyes turned reptilian. Aryans, will he deal with you? Okay, he said with a look that promised revenge. Aryans, in that case, how about we end this? He proposed as he pulled out his sword. My group against your companions. Which one will be stronger? Aryans questioned. Issei, okay, but you will lose, he said, accepting the challenge. They all went to the plains so they could fight freely. Kanade versus Agth. Tanya versus Mina and Lena. Aryans versus Issei. With Kanade. Agth, do I have to fight you? Perfect. I was already looking forward to fighting against a great species, he said to take out his great sword that was tied to his back. When it connected with the ground it made a small crack and made the forest tremble a little, causing the birds to get scared and they began to fly away. Kanade, Naya! I'm going to beat you up so you'll apologize, she said annoyed and with her tail raised. Agth, MVP, I don't have to apologize. We don't want weaklings in the group of heroes. Kanade, oh really? In that case, get ready, she said, to run out and face Agth head on and jump to kick him. Agth was a little surprised by the burst of speed that barely gave him a chance to cover himself with his sword. When the kick hit, it caused him to step back. Kanade, take some more! She exclaimed excitedly before unleashing a combo of punches on Agth, who was still covering himself with his sword. Agth, this woman is not only fast but each blow is very strong. She is going to force me to retreat, he thought desperately. Kanade, you're not going to fight back? I asked mockingly. The heroes group isn't much, huh? Agth, don't make fun of me, damn dwarf. He said to give a horizontal slash that Kanade easily dodged. Agth smiled at that action and raised his sword that caught fire. Secret technique, Hellstorm! He exclaimed. Kanade looked surprised, but suddenly she kicks him as if it was nothing. Agth, I deflected? That blow can destroy the steel itself, and she deflected it as if it were nothing, he thought in surprise. Kanade had moved away a little. Kanade, wow. With that seriousness, it seemed like it was going to be a great technique, but I barely felt it. How disappointing, said Kanade, very disappointed by the fight that she doesn't even consider it that way. Agth, we need Issei's help, so I don't want to kill you, but… Kanade smirked. Agth, now you will see everything I have, he said, and a red aura surrounded him. Don't blame me if you die. Kanade, all you have? In that case, she said as she began to stretch. Release half of my strength? She said innocently. Agth, what? He had turned blue with fear. Kanade, if you're going to be serious, you should be a little careful, but if you end up hurt, just know that it's nothing personal, okay? Kanade told him. Agth began to tremble. Wasn't he even using half his strength? He thought in fear. Kanade, here I go. Agth, what is someone so strong doing under the orders of that weakling? He said, already sweating bullets, but Kanade at a tremendous speed was already in front of him with a kick ready. Kanade, isn't it obvious? Issei is much stronger than you, she said, kicking him and sending him crashing into a tree that ended up breaking in half from the impact. Kanade, I think I went a little too far. No. You made fun of Issei and made me angry. I hope you've learned your lesson, she said reproachfully, while Agth's soul was leaving. With Tanya. Tanya, so it's my turn against you too? She asked doubtfully. I would prefer to face the hero, but I will let Issei take the credit. Lena, you should mind your manners, she said, summoning her staff. Mina, how dare you talk about Aryans like that? She also said to summon her golden staff. Tanya, it seems like I'm going to beat them very easily, she said in a conceited manner. Lena, damn lizard, you'll regret those words, she said with a darkened look and a vein standing out. Mina, we'll see. Tanya just smiled at that. Lena, now you will know all the spells I have. Feel the gravity on your body. I cast your spell. Mina, come, purifying light. Lena/Mina, gravity burst/holy flame, they said at the same time. The spells were fired towards Asia Tanya, who was waiting patiently for them, and when they were close she snapped her fingers, making the spells disappear, surprising the girls. Mina, the spells disappeared? She said doubtfully. Tanya was holding back a laugh that she could no longer contain. Tanya, ha 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 ha, you should see the idiotic faces they made, she said while holding her stomach to try to catch her breath. How funny, I thought they wanted to beat me. The two girls blushed with embarrassment, but one did so with anger. Lena, mine again. Mina, yes. Lena, I'm sure she's using some trick. It doesn't matter if she's a dragon. It might not work on her, she thought as she prepared her next spell. Lena/Mina, Crimson Flame/Arrow of Judgment. They said their spells aiming at Tanya. Tanya, it will always end the same, she said simply, snapping her fingers again. Lena/Mina, again/how? They said, still not believing what they were seeing. Lena, what did you do? I asked the dragon. Tanya kept her confident look. Tanya, nullify matter. Analyzes the base of any spell and finds the magic needed to nullify it, she said while giving them a brief explanation of her spell. In short, your spells will never reach me. Lena, don't take us for idiots. How are we going to lose against a lizard? She exclaimed, frustrated for not even getting a scratch on it. Mina, the hero's party fears nothing. We have divine protection, said the priestess as she and her companion prepared another spell. Lena, Draconic Roar, she said as a swirling gust shot straight towards Tanya. Mina, Shine. Click. Lena, Fiery Javelin. Mina, Frozen Spear. Click. Lena, Storm. starting to run out. Mine, air cutter! Click. Lena, I am the best magician in the world. I have 1,000 spells, she said tiredly. Mina, idiot. Surrender to the power of God. Tanya just sighed in disappointment. Tanya, 1,000 spells? God's power? How ridiculous. Issei contained more than 10,000 beasts and even the gods. Lena, devour it all, black and white wisdom. Double disaster. She said so that 2 electric tornadoes came out towards Tanya. Mine, ignites, burns and explodes. Fireball. Click. Both witches were left with their faces plastered. Tanya, well. Are you desperate already? The truth is, I don't like taking advantage of the weak, but I'm afraid that I have the impression that you think you can leave as if nothing happened, after having made fun of my lord, she said with a penetrating look. The girls were scared by that. Tanya, I'll show you what real magic is. Not that pitiful magic they call advanced, but real epic magic, she said, causing a red magic circle to appear below her. Suddenly the skies darkened to a shade of red, as if Uranus had been castrated and the sky turned red. Then a bunch of magic circles appear in the sky and from these come crystals with a pointed surface. Tanya, I present to you death. Final etherion, she exclaimed in a deep voice so that the crystals came out in the direction of the women who hugged each other in fear. I know it's an illusion, but one day I will learn your technique, Issei, she thought, determined to learn her beloved's technique. Mina! Counterattack! Defeat her! Now in her desperation. Lena, no way! Do it yourself! Just as scared. Mina/Lena. Sorry, please, forgive us/ Please! In her desperation she had already begun to cry. Tanya just had a cold look without any sign of stopping. Tanya, boom! She said, and suddenly everything disappeared and the girls were left blank. Tanya, what's wrong? I was joking, she said, leaning over a little with her hand on her hip and the other on her knee, but she saw them faint. Tanya, wow! They have so little dignity. They shouldn't take jokes seriously. Well, Issei doesn't care about their mental or physical well-being, she said disinterestedly. With Issei. Issei versus Arians. Arios, you will regret having disobeyed the hero, Issei said, looking at him with arrogance. Not only did you spit on my offer to be useful again, but you also challenged me. Now you will see. He could not finish his sentence as Issei appeared with his open palm hitting him in the chest, which made him spit blood. Arios felt dizzy, his eyes felt heavy, and instinctively he took a bottle of high-quality life out of his pocket, which helped him recover. Arians, damn you! I was talking! He yelled angrily. Issei, and I don't want to hear trash, he said seriously as he put his hands in his pockets. Arios, oh really? In that case, unsheathing his sword. I'll finish this soon, he said before giving a horizontal slash. But Issei masterfully dodged it, but Arios did not stop there. Instead he continued with the cuts that a normal person would not see. A normal knight would see it but would not block it. Issei, wow, every time he dodged, he would fit his blows to make me back off, he thought as he watched Arian's attacks in slow motion. Now that I see it, his sword skill is good for a rookie, he thought mockingly. Issei only dodged with ease, but Arios didn't see that. He saw that Issei barely dodged his attacks with difficulty. Arios, ha ha ha. What's wrong? If you keep backing up you won't even scratch me, he said mockingly, and then gave him a stab that he easily dodged. Issei had dodged Arian's thrust to grab his wrist and squeeze it a little, eliciting a moan of pain from him. Issei, that's all, he said with boredom, surprising Arians. Arios, I blocked him, he said, so that Issei hit him in the stomach, which caused him to be propelled backwards with force, with a thin line of blood running down the corner of his lips. Arios, where did he get so much strength? A mere Tamer is not capable of. He could not continue thinking when he had to dodge Issei, who was already with his fist extended to his face, but when he dodged his fist he went to a rock that was behind him that had broken into pieces. Arians, how do you do that? He exclaimed, annoyed. Issei, you're not interested, Besides, I've been studying you for a while when you were in your group and I already know your patterns, he said simply. Arios. Shut up. Already starting to attack, erratically leaving holes in his defense that Issei took advantage of to kick him in the ribs. Issei, give up, trash, he said, looking, but suddenly he felt a small glimpse of magic, but he had to jump when he saw that a lightning bolt hit where he was before. Arios, ha ha ha. You're really stupid, have you forgotten? I have the special magic of the hero. I'm going to fry you whole, you shitty Tamer, he said arrogantly. Jigareo. From Arios' palm came a ray that was going to hit Issei, who was waiting for the right moment. Arios just smiled mockingly, saying that he was still just as useless. Arian's attack is already in front of Issei, who deflected it with one hand. Arios could not believe what his eyes saw. Arios, you deflected my lightning attack with your hand, she said, annoyed. I don't know what trick you did, but that won't change my advantage, she said, so that suddenly several magic circles appeared on the ground, stalagmites coming out that went directly to Issei. But Issei wouldn't move since it made sense for him to dodge those elemental attacks. He is immune to magic. When the stalagmites collided with Issei, they broke, but Arios didn't stop and launched an icy blast that didn't hurt him. Arios, I don't know what tricks you use, but you don't defeat me, he couldn't finish because rays were forming in Issei's hand. Issei, Chidori Nagashi said that an electric current would travel through the ground, paralyzing Arians. You were confident. Well, I'm not sorry to tell you this, but I'm angry that you made fun of Kanade and Tanya, he said while snapping his fingers. Arians were scared by that. Arios, wait, I may have been wrong, but Issei, we traveled together. We were partners. Right. No? He said, already very scared as Issei slowly approaches him. I surrender. Please forgive me, have mercy, he said, already desperate. Issei, I'm sorry, but I have no mercy, with a cold voice. Arians could not take it anymore and screamed desperately that his scream already sounded like that of a girl. In the distance, a column of smoke could be seen from the impact of Issei's blow that made the forest tremble. Issei looked at Arian seriously. His face was horrible, his lip was split, he had a black eye, he was missing a tooth, and I think he damaged an organ. Well, what does it matter? Issei had hit him with some of his strength to scare him, but he really wanted to vent stress because of the annoyance he had felt before, and because the trash had already made him mad. Tanya / Kanade, Issei! The girls who were approaching shouted from afar. Hello? Issei, Kanade, Tanya said to hug them tightly. Chapter 4, Lost Forest 2. Narrates normally. Issei and the girls were in the Lost Forest. Kanade, is this the Lost Forest? I questioned, looking around. It's a little depressing, don't you think? Tanya, yes, it's true. It's dark and it's daytime, she said to create a small flame. Do you want me to set it on fire? She said in a deep voice. Issei, unfortunately, we can't do that, he said seriously, and the girls looked at him with doubt. The territory that the forest covers is large and has its own ecosystem, and only because I want to recover my territory, he said seriously. Tanya, okay, I was joking, she said, putting out the fire in her hands. This is the deepest thing. Issei looked at the map that Arians gave him. The girls next to him were also looking at the map that only showed how far the hero's group had gone. Issei, as I recall, the forest is constantly growing. Well, this map is of no use to us, he said as he burned the map with his black fire. Takan, he! Now we have to search, she said dejectedly. Tanya, do we have to find him no matter what? Tanya said. Issei, yes, apparently I had forgotten that apart from the Dragon Slayer swords there is also Dragon Slayer magic, but only a few know that art, he said seriously. Tanya, so there are people who can hurt you and me too, she said with concern, and Kanade was also worried about that. Issei, unfortunately in the war there were some talented dragons who created that magic to defeat me, even though that would mean going against their race, and thanks to that they removed a piece of my scale, he said seriously and with a little irritation against that damn fire dragon that watched over human trash. Tanya, that means someone found your scale and created the shield of truth, she said seriously, because if that was true then that shield could be a very valuable weapon. Kanade, they repeated to me, I didn't understand anything, she said with swirls in her eyes and smoke coming out of her head. Issei, to sum it all up, I am a magic dragon and I am immune to both ancient and current magic. Now imagine that someone has a part of me and creates a weapon, he said seriously. Tanya, the weapon would also be immune to magic, she said, surprised and seeing the weight of the matter. Kanade, I get it now, she said, taking in everything. Issei, of course it would be immune but to a lesser extent, but it could withstand about 2 or 3 of my best attacks before being destroyed since it was only made with a scale. And if they wanted to withstand everything from me they would have to have my blood and flesh, he said seriously. He didn't like them using his parts for their own benefit, and on top of that against him. Kanade, what's so special about your blood? He said with doubt, and Tanya was the same. She didn't see any benefits in her master's blood. Issei, my blood is poisonous, he said seriously. Well, let's finish this, he said with a headache coming on. And they wonder how they got to that well. Flashback. Arian's Agth Minalina, we were sorry, the heroes group said at the same time. They were on the verge of collapse, but the one who was worse off was Arian's, who still had a black eye and a broken lip. Tanya, they call that an apology, and they don't seem to mean it. They need to be more sincere, Tanya said with a piercing look, and the more she remembered what she was saying, her voice became threatening. Hero group, we are so sorry. Tanya, I can't hear them, she exclaimed. Heroes group, we are so sorry, almost shouting it. Kanade, do we forgive them? She said, turning to see Issei, who had the last word. Issei, I don't care what these trash do, as long as they don't get in my way, he said indifferently. Arios gritted his teeth and suppressed anger. Arios, okay. I accept your request. Well, let's get to the point. Some monsters guard the shield of truth deep in the Lost Forest. It is essential to defeat the Demon King. We have to get it as soon as possible so I can use it. The fate of the world is at stake. You can't refuse to do it, he said while pointing at them arrogantly. Issei frowned in annoyance, almost losing the little patience he had left, which could be seen by the vein that appeared on his temple. While that was happening, everything was silent until Tanya spoke. Tanya, aren't you a bit pedantic? I questioned with a frown. Issei didn't know how, but Kanade had copied a technique from a dimension he had left long ago. Kanade, that's because he's not sorry, he said with a giant head and a vein on his temple, scaring the heroes group. Issei, already tired of all this, decided to stop scolding the heroes. Issei, calm down, girls, he said, caressing their heads, making them blush a little. We accepted the job, just because I'm curious about that shield, he said, feigning ignorance. End of flashback. Issei, I said we would, but Issei couldn't keep thinking about Kanade. Kanade, hey, are you really going to help that hero? She said, questioning Issei if what they were doing for the hero was right. This doesn't give me a good feeling. Tanya, I agree. We don't need those idiots. I could defeat that general by myself, she said, showing off her scarlet hair. Kanade, are you sure, Issei? I asked him, worried. Issei just let out a sigh. He's not surprised by the concern they have for him. Issei approached them and hugged them by their waists, making them blush. Kanade, Issei, but she couldn't say much when Issei kissed her on the lips, only this time it wasn't his body doing it, he did it of his own free will. Tanya, hey! Why she couldn't continue since Issei also kissed her. Tanya is blushing to levels that are on par with her hair. Why did you kiss us? She said, embarrassed. Issei, does a man need a reason to kiss his partner? Well, in this case, couples, he said while smiling a little, watching how the girls look away elsewhere. Okay. It's also so that they stop worrying. Besides, I need to confirm if that shield is made of one of my scales and that it's not a replica of the real one, he said seriously. Tanya, my duty is to faithfully follow you wherever you go. Besides, you are my teacher and my partner, she said, blushing a little at the last thing she said. Kanade, cough, cough. Kanade coughed fakely and looked at Tanya surreptitiously. Tanya, our couple corrected themselves when they noticed Kanade's gaze. Issei, okay, calm down, Kanade, he said as he kissed her head, calming Kanade and making her smile. Well, let's look, he said as they went deeper into the forest. After 2 hours of walking, they returned to where they started, confusing the girls but not Issei. Issei, mental illusion spell, he said seriously, not liking that kind of magic very much. The fairies must have put some trick in the forest, he said irritatedly. Issei, Tanya, do you know the material search spell? He asked the dragon, who nodded. Come help me, we will do the spell together, he said so that she would grab his hand and conjure the enchantment. Tanya/Issei, material search, they said at the same time, and a magic circle appeared at their feet so that small red lights came out of them from Tanya, and some dark ones from Issei. The lights were showing the way. Issei, let's go, he said to follow the lights with the girls. They walked for a while until they found a magic tree. Issei, so that tree emitted mirage magic. Not bad, said the one who put that spell on the tree, praising a little. Kanade, mirage magic? She said doubtfully. Tanya, she throws a magic field that gets into the target's brain. In short, the spell made us walk in circles, she said so that Kanade would understand. Kanade, I see, she said with a chibi face. Tanya, okay, Kanade, can you destroy the tree? She asked her cat friend. Kanade, for what? To get even? She said, already understanding what her dragon friend meant. Tanya, no way. Who do you take me for? I complained, offended. Issei, don't fight, there's no choice but to destroy it, he said, charging against the tree only to stop when he heard a voice in the surroundings that scared Kanade. Kanade, what was that voice? She said with chills running down her spine. Get out of here. Get out of here, the voice repeated the same thing over and over again. Kanade hid behind Issei out of fear. Until they saw a fairy come out of the tree and keep repeating, get out of here. Issei, now I know how the fairies hid from humans in the last 200 years, not to mention the fairies' hatred towards humans. I found my appetizer, Issei thought before unconsciously licked his lips. When he reacted to that, he had to mentally slap himself at that impulse. And it was no wonder the fairy was surrounded by a purple aura with black touches. Not many could see that, since what it gives off is negative feelings, not magical power. It had been a while since it had fed on negativity. Get out of here, he said in a monotonous voice. Kanade, hey, we just wanted to talk, I couldn't continue. Get out of here, the loli repeated again. Issei, will we be able to? He couldn't continue since the little fairy spoke again. Get out of here, he said again in a monotonous voice but with a slight frown. Issei was already running out of patience. If you don't leave, I'll take you out by force, he said, extending his palm to the forehead that began to shine. The girls got scared and ran away, but Issei didn't. The girls, when they were at a certain distance, looked at Issei with concern and shouted at him because he didn't run away with them. Issei, I'm not afraid of you, fairy. I came to talk, so we'll do it the good way or the bad way, he said seriously. You can attack me, but don't do anything to the girls behind me, he said, sensing the presences of the girls who were approaching his direction with a certain margin of distance. Kanade/Tanya, hey! They exclaimed at the same time, not knowing whether to be pleased or offended. In that case, I will expel you right now, he said, to create several magic circles from which arrows of light came out. The girls were going to intervene, but Issei stopped them, not wanting them to get in the way. The arrows shot out at Issei with intensity, but they only grazed him and did not harm him. UNM? The fairy was slightly surprised by that but did not give up on her attack. Why don't you run? I asked her. Issei, didn't I tell you? I'll talk to you either by good or by bad means, he said without taking his eyes off the little fairy. Did you let yourself be attacked to gain my trust? I don't understand, she said, confused. Are you really human? She said it with doubt. Are you one of those humans who invaded and plundered our lands? She thought while remembering her past. Issei, no. I'm not human, he said seriously. But I can't promise you that there are many good humans there, he said indifferently. You're not going to fool me, he said as he attacked Issei again, but with the intention of killing. The arrows were about to hit when Issei saw that some were going to hit Kanade. He spread his wings and covered Kanade, leaving her back exposed, but as Issei expected, the arrows did not affect her at all. Issei, you still don't understand that we just want to talk, he said to stop covering Kanade, who was in his arms hugging her, making her smile. What a peculiar dragon, a feline spirit and a dragoness, he said as he went down to the grass. It's the first time I've met creatures like you. What's your name? He said to extend his hand since he had sat next to Kanade to block the attacks. Issei, Soldike said as he accepted the help. Sora, my name is Sora. I'll listen to what you have to say. Issei had told him everything about the shield and giving it to the hero. Sora, I understand. You are looking for the shield of truth to give it to the hero. I am right, he said, looking at Issei if he was not mistaken. Issei, correct, although I suppose it was you who put up the barrier, he said, looking at Sora, who nodded. Bring the shield and I'll take care of the monsters, he said seriously, because apart from feeling hatred towards humans, he also felt the same or perhaps a little more towards monsters. Well, he wanted to go into detail with the fairy about that feeling she has for those creatures. Sora accepted the request and left in a rush of water and air and suddenly appeared with the shield of truth. Issei, when he saw it, let out a growl of anger. He felt a part of him in that shield. Sora, take this. Even though I hate humans, I hate monsters more, he said, looking away slightly so they wouldn't notice he was sad. Tanya, we did it, she said happily. Issei, I can't destroy it. Literally, the base of the shield was its scale that was decorated with other gold materials or other minerals. Technically, its scale was 90% of the shield. There is no other choice. I will have to leave it like this, he thought with a frown. Issei, do you want me to do something for you? He said, seeing how she hesitated to say it. Don't hesitate. If you need my help, just say it. I promise that whatever you need or do, I will do it, he said, holding out his hand. But without waiting, she hugged him, surprising him and the girls, but she calmed down when she felt that her shirt was getting wet. Sora was crying. After she calmed down, she told them that she had a twin sister, her name is Runa, and that they took care of the tree to protect the village from the fairies. The tree itself is a barrier to prevent anyone from entering their village, but one day they had to leave due to some inconveniences, but they ran into a minion of the Demon King. Sora, but he chased us and we were forced to fight. We couldn't beat him, then he captured Runa, the fairy finished telling. The monster, the Dark Knight said, lowering his head in helplessness. Issei, that explains everything, he said seriously, and the girls looked at him doubtfully. Issei, seeing that they didn't understand, explained it to them in a simple way. Issei, the Dark Knight is a C-rank monster. It shouldn't be able to fight against a large species, but it has a trick. It can nullify all types of magic attacks. In short, it only affects physical attacks, he said seriously, and the girls nodded in understanding. Sora, the Dark Knight asked me to remove the barrier, then he would return Runa to me, he said sadly for his sister. I couldn't risk the village fairies, so I went to ask for help, but they refused, he said on the verge of tears. Issei, stop crying, I'll help you get that fairy back, he said with an annoyed look, but he couldn't continue grumbling since Sora was hugging him. In another place in the Lost Forest, the Dark Knight could be seen sitting on a throne while an evil energy surrounded him, reaching the demonic, and behind him you could see that he had captured a fairy similar to Sora. Rune. Chapter 5. The Captive Fairy. After Sora calmed down, he began to explain to Issei where the Dark Knight was. Sora, the Dark Knight asked me to remove the barrier before night falls and says that if I refuse my sister will die, he said, turning his head regretfully. Kanade, tonight, she said, surprised by how little time they had. Tanya, there is no time to lose, she said with conviction. Issei, where is it? He said seriously. Sora, she's in that direction with my sister, he said while pointing to a certain dark part of the forest. Issei, well, we will take care of it, he said to leave. Sora, I should accompany them, he said in an attempt to help. Issei, no. If you do, the knight will think that you broke the agreement by killing your sister. Calm down, you are with 2 dragons and a feline spirit, he said with his usual seriousness. Sora just nodded in confidence with Issei and wished them luck. After a while, Issei and his group arrived where the Dark Knight was and saw that he was sitting on a throne and behind him was Sora's sister, Runa, chained. Issei, very well, we will attack him at 3, understood, he said looking at his women. Kanade/Tanya, yes, they said in confirmation. Issei, 1, 2, 3 now. he said as he walked out in front of the knight who was looking at them with disinterest. Tanya, she said fireball to throw a powerful fireball at him, but it didn't affect him at all, not even a scratch. Dark Knight, I don't care who they are, their spells don't affect me, he said in a voice that echoed through the armor. Kanade, we know that very well, she said, kicking him on the left side of the neck. The kick had caused the knight's body to weaken a little. Issei, but enough to distract you, he said as he punched him in the stomach, causing the armor to dent, and if one pays attention near his mouth, a reddish-black liquid is coming out. Dark Knight, this force, so you are the hero, he couldn't continue as Issei interrupted him. Issei, don't compare me to that trash, he said seriously, somewhat annoyed. How could you compare trash like Aryans to him? Dark Knight, and you challenge me knowing that I serve the Demon King. Tell me what you are planning, said the wandering tin can seriously. Issei, does it matter? He said as if that question mattered, but inside he knew that this wishful thinking man knew his motive. Dark Knight, I understand now. That fairy asked you for help, she said, guessing what's going on here. Surprising Kanade, in that case it's time to punish such a betrayal, she said as she took out a short sword, throwing it at Runa, who was unconscious, and the sword was going straight to her head, but a tail of red scales stopped it. Tanya, I won't let you, you'll have to go over me, she said as she flew with her wings to rescue Runa. Issei, well done, I'll make it up to you later, he said while smiling a little, which made Tanya blush and embarrassed. Tanya, then defeat him once and for all, she said, looking away so they don't see her blush while she takes flight with Runa. Dark Knight, you will not escape, he said while pointing his sword at Tanya. Kanade/Issei, don't forget that we're here, she said as they gave him a joint kick, sending him skidding a few meters. Dark Knight, I will not allow anyone to underestimate me, he said while his red eyes shined with anger. Damn you! He said furiously as he began to spin on his own axis, creating a cutting tornado. This action activated Issei's alarms, and with his speed he charged Kanade in bridal style and moved away a few meters away, and Kanade, for obvious reasons, had not processed what happened, since one moment she was standing and the next she was in her master's arms. She blushed because of it, but as quickly as she came she left when she saw the tornado cutting stones, roots, among other things. Kanade, this guy is crazy, she said, annoyed by the Dark Knight. Issei, I have a plan. I distract him and you deliver the coup de grace, he said, looking at Kanade. Kanade, but Issei, that thing withstood our blows, we need more to defeat it, said Kanade. Issei, don't worry, I'll make him stay still, and if that fails I'll take care of him personally, he said to Issei, who will begin to tame some bees that were around there, and went to attack the Dark Knight, who, to Issei's disappointment, saw how he drove them away with his sword as if they were death. Without a doubt that was embarrassing and at the same time humiliating for the Dark Knight himself. Issei, well, I will transfer power to you, he said while from his left arm a green aura with red touches and already with the necessary increases for Kanade. Boost 20 transfer, Issei thought while he touched Kanade's shoulder, and immediately a green aura began to surround her. Kanade, what is this power? I feel stronger, she thought, somewhat stunned by the power she received. Issei, Kanade now, Issei said when he saw that the bees were dying because of the Dark Knight's toxic aura. Kanade shot towards the Dark Knight, and with a raised fist, and charging all the power that Issei had given her, when she hit the Dark Knight's stomach she made him bend, but if you looked behind the Dark Knight you would see that there was a trail of destruction of 20 meters. Dark Knight, no Koti can be, he said as his body began to crack and finally disappear into particles of purple light and darkness. Kanade, Issei. Hey! What did you do? Suddenly I felt super powerful, she said, very excited about what happened. Issei, it's an ability of my older brother, he said, remembering a certain red dragon who was crying because of a certain nickname, and couldn't help but laugh, but when he saw Kanade, who wanted to ask about the subject, he cut her off. But it will be a story for another time, he said while stroking her head. Kanade, HMP, she exclaimed, pouting. Tanya, hey! What are you doing? She exclaimed upon seeing Issei and Kanade's interaction, causing her to grumble. Kanade, it will be okay, she said while seeing that the body does not move. Tanya, calm down, she's just unconscious. By the way, Issei, that ability is lost forever, can you tell me how or where you learned it? she said, looking at Issei seriously. Issei, to be honest, that ability belongs to my older brother, said Issei without much importance, and when he saw that Tanya was going to say something. And no. It is not related to the Tamer skills. Kanade, good. Well, the important thing is that we already have Sora's little sister. And make a pose to celebrate, she said as she began to do a victory dance. Tanya, you look ridiculous, said Tanya. But thanks to the scandal, the little fairy began to wake up. Runa, who are you? She said, looking at everyone. Issei, your brother asked us to save you. And you're alive, don't think you're dead, he said without any tact. Runa, I see, it was Sora as he smiled at what his sister did. Moments later. Everyone was already at the magic tree and the two sisters could be seen hugging each other lovingly. Sora could not hold back the water in his eyes and let some tears fall. Sora, Runa, I'm glad you're still alive. That monster hurt you, he said as he swept her from head to toe. Runa, calm down, I feel fine, she said, trying to calm her sister down. Sora, seriously, thanks for saving my sister. I don't know how to thank you, he said, bowing slightly in gratitude. Runa, thank you all, she also said, thanking them. Issei, it was nothing, he said to calm them down a bit. Sora, I was so afraid of what would happen to me, and I would have surely done horrible things to myself if they hadn't arrived in time. My life would have been hell, he said dramatically. Issei, he said with a face that said he had imagined it, but he couldn't deny that it was fun. Of course, he didn't imagine it in a lustful way, but something very funny. Runa, you imagined it, didn't you? You let your masculine imagination fly, right? She said mischievously. Sora, enough, Runa, this is no time for jokes like that, he said, scolding his older sister for those types of jokes and words. Kanade, thank goodness now they can live together again, she said happily, but the sisters' gazes faded. Sora, I can't live in a town that abandoned my sister, although I understand why she acted that way, but we have to leave, she said with disappointment to her people. Kanade, let them stop if they come with us. What do you think? Tanya said happily. Tanya, I guess I am now, but our leader is the one who has the last word, she said, looking at Issei. Issei, they are willing to come with us knowing that there will be humans, she said, looking if he doubted her. Sora, didn't you say that there was a small amount of humans with noble hearts? Although I don't trust humans, you could be a decent companion like that, so he said, blushing at the last word. Runa, if my sister thinks you're a good person, I wouldn't mind if you were our guide today, she said while pointing at him with her finger, and Sora began to shake her. Runa/Sora, now what follows is the pact, the sisters said. Issei had doubts about this pact since the contract with the fairies was different from the other animals, since they were weak and barely had a brain to think about themselves, but that of the great species is different, and that of the fairies even more so. Tanya, you're thinking of giving up before trying, that's not typical of you, darling, she said as she grabbed his arm and put it between her chest, and Issei was thinking if she did that on purpose or not. Kanade, we know that you will do the best you can, she said while also hugging him. Issei, fine. Fine, I will do it, he said while making the pact. After Issei finishes the pact, the Hades look at each other without any physical change. Sora, the pact is over, seeing if his body had changed, he said while looking at himself. Runa, look at the mark we have on our hand, she said while looking at her hand. Kanade, you did it, Issei said happily. Tanya, I knew you would do it, said Tanya, crossing her arms, making her breasts stand out more. Issei was thinking about how this could affect his body, and he was not wrong in feeling that his body was not responding to him. The girls were surprised and worried, but the fairies reacted in time. Issei, thanks for that. Sora, are you okay? She said, worried about the dark-haired boy with blue eyes. But without them knowing it, she was grabbing Issei by his pectorals and arms. But Tanya and Kanade had noticed and had a jealous look on her face since Kanade had Tanya by the shoulders, who was still processing what she was seeing. Sora/Runa, from this moment on we are here for you, they said at the same time while Sora bows in respect and Runa raises his head smugly. Lord Tamer, they said with a smile. Call a cardiologist. I think my heart is failing. Anxious face with sweat heart with arrow. Moments later. Everyone was already in the house where the hero and his group were looking at Issei with contempt, and in a corner behind Issei were the girls watching. Sora, this is fine. Let Issei go alone with them, he said, looking at the hero's group but more specifically at the blonde who doesn't give him a good feeling. Kanade, I don't like this at all, but Issei didn't ask us to stay here and that's what we'll do, said Kanade. Tanya, I'm worried that the hero will try something else. I don't trust him, he said seriously. Runa, if he dares to do something to Issei then we will go out to save him, she said with conviction. Kanade, I'm in, she said, raising her hand. Tanya, I think he could do it, he's a dragon after all, she said, fully trusting Issei. With Issei. Issei, as I promised, here is the shield of truth, he said, showing the shield that is theoretically his scale. Surprising everyone in the group as they were not expecting this in such a short time. Issei, what's wrong, he said with doubt. Arios, it's something strange. If I remember correctly, your group just started this mission 2 days ago, right? He said, trying to calm his annoyance. Issei, if we get it in 2 days, he said without much importance. Arians, impossible. We couldn't get there in a week. Oh, don't tell me that shield is fake, he said, trying to justify all that. Issei, then check it out yourself, he said seriously, placing the shield on the round table where the 4 members were looking at the shield. Mina, I'm going to check it with my magic, she said, to raise her hand above the shield and a magic circle appeared from her hand. It's the real one, she said, still not believing it. Agth, what? He said, unable to believe it. Lena, impossible, she said, surprised. Arians, how could they get it so fast? He said, seeing 2 blonde girls to his right. Who are they? I see a couple of new faces, they look like little girls, he said, staring at those 2, trying to figure out what they are. Issei, that is something that does not concern you, he said, crossing his vision between them and Ares, looking at the hero seriously. Fulfill your part of the deal. Arians, so you're only interested in money, he said, throwing him a bag of gold coins. Issei, it's not that I'm interested, but I always fulfill the deals and this is no exception, he said before leaving. HMP garbage, he thought the last thing. Agth, wait, Issei, would you like to return to the group? He said seriously without looking back, surprising Arians and saying nonsense that they shouldn't, and the other female members also voted in approval. The only one who refused was Arians. Issei, no, he said, simply trying to leave with his girls, but Agth stopped him. Agth, you reject us. Defeating the Demon King will give you a better level of fame, and you will surely be filled with riches, he said, trying to convince him. Issei, seriously, level, they are facing the dragon of the apocalypse. Riches, please. In my cave I have mountains and mountains of diamonds, gold, jewels and any necessary object and minerals, he thought with irony at the bribery attempt of these humans. Moments later, when Issei and his group left, only Arians remained, who began to insult Issei behind his back, calling him useless. He also retreated alone, leaving Arians alone with only the shield. Arios, it's not gone. The pain I felt at that moment is not. It wasn't just that pain, humiliation, resentment, none of that will go away easily, he said angrily, but without knowing it, the same dark dragon was watching and listening to him, and he could only shake his head. That scum could defeat the hero, he said, hitting the shield with anger. I'm going to eliminate him. I'll do it with my own hands. I'll kill Issei, he said with hatred, clenching his teeth in anger. The dragon could only disappear into the darkness to inform his master. With Issei. He was under a tree resting with the girls around him, but suddenly a dark figure appeared that took the form of a baby dragon, and looked at Issei with the Sharingan. Well, I tried, don't judge me. Issei, if they gave me a gold coin for every time I've heard that. Arios, you never learn, right? Issei thought and ordered the dragon to continue spying on Arians. Sora, only the hero can defeat the Demon King, he said with doubt. Runa, yes, you're asking me the same thing. Issei, as I remember, a few thousand years ago before the Demon Queen died, she with her great power controlled humans to serve them. The gods had to join forces with other races to be even, but they needed a wild card that could tip the balance of power. the first hero who made a pact with the gods to defeat her received her blood in his body. And thanks to divine power he defeated the Demon King, General. And that is the story of the first hero, he said without much interest, and the girls paid attention to the story, although Tanya and Kanade knowing that there was a queen and not a king, but they did not know the full part of the story and the alliance of their races. Issei. But thanks to the divine blood the hero can increase his power since normal people have a limit, and no matter how hard you train it is simply impossible, but for the hero it is not since it consists of breaking the limits, he said to clarify the power behind arrogance. Kanade. But that hero is a weakling, she said, remembering the humiliating defeat she suffered at the hands of Issei. Issei, for now yes, but his development has no limits. But on the path he is going I don't think he will go very far before dying due to his arrogance, and he is supposed to defeat the current Demon King. Sora. But you don't look like that hero, even though you are a dragon. You made a pact with Kanade, and with us now you have fairy magic. Kanade. I do not doubt my Issei's ability, she exclaimed happily without realizing what she had said lastly, causing Issei to have a shiver running down his spine, and by inertia he had transformed his hand into a claw, but he quickly calmed down and detransformed it into his usual hand. Tanya, I think that's fine, it's better to leave it to that idiot hero. After all, we'll be able to handle it if something gets out of control, she said confidently, and the others nodded. Issei, well, let's go to the town, I need some things, he said, and the girls followed him. Issei, not knowing who was in the village, was going to get a not very pleasant surprise. In the village, two women were walking through the streets of the town buying some items, but also drawing the attention of all the men and women. The men with lust and the women with envy, and of course the men who were married got some good beatings from their wives. Penemu, seriously, it seems that men here are more degenerate than in our world, he said, overcoming. Gabriel, don't be like that, you also agreed to come with me to buy some items in this town, he said to remind his friend that he lost the bet with her. Penemu, anyway, let's go, he said, to continue buying some fruit for the road. But without knowing it, she would collide with a black-haired man with blue eyes. Gabriel, who was behind her, was going to help her so she wouldn't fall, but the man was faster and grabbed her by the waist. Be more careful, the man said seriously, still not realizing who he is. Penemu, seeing the man apologize and formally thank him, looked at who he was and was surprised and couldn't help but say his name. Penemu, Issei said, still not believing it, and his friend who had heard what he said fixed her gaze on the man in front of him and was also in shock. When Issei heard his name he looked at the women in front of him since he never told them his name, but when he looked at the one he had collided with. Issei, Penemu, Gabriel said without believing what he was seeing before his eyes. The girls behind Issei wondered where Issei knew those women, and surprisingly Runa and Sora couldn't help but look at the bodies of the two women in front of Issei and became depressed. Then all hell broke loose. Then without any scruples Issei alone at full power, his power darkened the world again. Storms were forming and the civilians around had to hide thinking that the demons were going to come. Everyone was silent. The girls behind Issei were surprised by the action, and while Gabriel and Penemu already expected this reaction.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown in left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.